This segment of the news is brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
Welcome back. Minister of National Security Marvin Dames says his government accepts criticisms from individuals who believe that the government is moving too slowly to identify the bodies of victims of Hurricane Dorian. But he says the government has received high praises from an international expert on the recovery and identification process.
We had an expert out of the U.S. where the Minister of Health and myself met with him and U.S. officials right here not too long after the storm. And he deals with the recovery of bodies and natural disasters all over the world. And he was very commendable about the process and how the Bahamian officials were executing this process. Given his experience, he was very commendable, and that was good to hear.
Mr. Dames says the government continues to work with social services, the Ministry of Health, Red Cross Society, the Attorney General's Office, and external agencies to assist with the process. He added that most of the bodies on Grand Bahama have been identified and released.
So as far as the process is concerned, for example, in Grand Bahama, people don't talk about it, but most of the bodies had already been identified and turned over. Okay, all right. You're not going to, when you have this kind of catastrophe, disaster, sometimes the identification of bodies, given sometimes the state of decomposition, given now that a lot of people are transient, it becomes that much more complicated.
Mr. Dames added that Hurricane Dorian was the most impactful storm in Bahamian history, and the government is doing the best it can as the country has never dealt with such devastation. He says his government will continue to bring relief to those affected in Abaco and Grand Bahama. With more than 75,000 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 or coronavirus in mainland China and about 700 cases in other countries, the Ministry of Health in its recent update says it's continuing to monitor how the virus progresses internationally while health officials continue their preparedness activities, including ongoing surveillance at ports of entry, weekly update meetings with relevant stakeholders, educational and media sessions, multimedia information distribution platforms, training of frontline health workers in infection prevention and control policies and procedures, as well as ensuring that laboratory diagnostic capacity for the coronavirus is established in the country. To date, the ministry says there are no suspected or reported cases of the virus here. On Monday, Bahamians who were quarantined on their return home from China were released after the 14-day quarantine period ended. Health officials says there have been no additional arrivals requiring quarantine measures. In crime news, police investigating another fatal shooting here in the capital, the second in just over 24 hours. It was shortly before 10 last night that a man was sitting at the rear of a home on Wilson Track when he was approached by a male armed with a firearm who shot him before running away. Paramedics, having responded to the scene, transported the injured man to hospital where he later succumbed. This incident follows the fatal shooting of a young man on Monday night on Toot Shop Corner off East Street. Police are actively investigating. Meantime, no one was arrested for a significant amount of illegal drugs found over in Exuma. Police on that island making a huge find when Exuma Division officers, acting on intelligence, conducted a search of the southern shoreline of Farmers Key on Sunday and Monday of this week. Officers recovered some $435,000 worth of suspected cocaine, 23 packages in fact, weighing in at 65 pounds. Our final stories are up next.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.